Hi, welcome to episode 2 of this podcast that nobody has asked for, on the Buried Rat channel. Hi. Hope y'all are doing good. Today's episode, the theme is going to be politics, but I'm actually going to start by saying, one, this is inspired heavily by the Broski Report with Brittany Broski, if you've heard that podcast before, of just, she kind of like freely talks at the camera for an hour, and that's kind of what this is, except I'm like writing down themes to talk about, because I know I will just go off on a tangent, so, yeah, what else? Yeah, this episode's theme is politics, even though, keep in mind, I'm not a poli-sci major. I have no real political background apart from the fact that I know politics affects me, so take everything I say with a grain of salt, basically. But yeah, here we go. First thing to talk about is, so how did Trump get into office a second time? I personally cannot understand. Every time I think about it, I'm like, so you're telling me you got impeached twice, you were a felon on multiple counts, and people voted for you? I don't get it. And his target audience is like the middle class, which I also don't get, because he is not middle class. So I don't understand why people think he's like fighting for you as a middle class person when he like very much is just holding himself up. I don't know. Just saying, I don't know. It was a little weird to me. But yeah, the executive orders that have already come in, when I'm recording this, it's February something. Let me see if I can check, actually. Yeah, February 23rd. So, yeah, the executive orders have already really rolled in. I don't know if he's going to do any more, but at this point, who fucking knows? The Gulf of Mexico is now the Gulf of America on Google Maps, so we have gotten to that point. I know they're still trying to drill. I think there's some secretary of something where they're trying to just like take over the national parks and use them for natural resources, and I'm like, bro, I do not understand any of his policies whatsoever. And fucking tariffs, him like fully in public trying to turn Canada into a state, ? I was just like, I don't know, there's some ridiculous bullshit happen. Oh, sorry, I'm trying not to swear this episode because I did so much last episode and it was like really bad to edit. Anyway, sorry. He did so much stuff in the public eye in feuds with Canada that now isn't Trudeau like stepping down or something? Like, I don't know. The fact that he has already messed up our international relations with so many different countries. Has he even been in for a full month yet? I don't think so. Yeah, because that was in like the middle of January or something. I don't know. It's just way too much, way too quickly. And I'm hoping he doesn't stay here. There was I think it was a Times article that was posted with like a picture of Trump with a crown, and the fact that some people are seeing that and being like, okay. I think the like way a lot of extreme politics works is just that whoever that extreme politician is just going to try something, and whoever goes with it goes with it. Because once they have power, what can we do? As the rest of the nation, what can we do when people are actively saluting Hitler on stage and like, you know, just those types of things? I don't know. It's quite insane to be thinking about. Yeah, and one of those executive orders was about gender, which is one of the things I wrote down, because that's one thing that I will be very strong about on this podcast to anyone who's listening. Transgender people are people. Any rights for trans people is human rights. I don't understand how that doesn't get through some people's heads. And I hate the like argument of, oh, they're mentally ill. You know that the treatment for gender dysphoria is transitioning? if you care about these people's mental health so much, why aren't you letting them transition? Why are you actively blocking them from getting transitioned? What sense does that make? And then the other people who are just like, oh, they're pretending to... hold on. What country are we in again? America. You have a freedom to do whatever you want here. To a certain extent, of course. But, like, everyone is supposed to have freedom. Really, freedom until it impedes someone else's freedom. But how does... I don't understand how someone using the bathroom impedes your freedom. I don't understand why people make it such a problem. Because, honestly, if you're looking around at the people in the bathroom and being like, is this person trans? Are they gonna... Is there a trans person gonna touch me in here? They do not... No trans person is in the bathroom actively scoping people out like that. And it's crazy that you would think that they are. Like, it just... I don't know. It does not make sense to me. Just leave trans people alone is really my thing. Just leave them alone. They are not hurting anyone. Leave them alone. Pretty much any group. That can be said about, yeah, pretty much every group. Just, if they're not hurting you, leave them alone. And, that... Yeah, I guess we can go on to my final thing. This is kind of early, only 6 minutes in. The final thing I wanted to talk about is a people's party. I know that, like, in Germany, which I think they just had their election either today or yesterday. Actually, yeah, Sunday, today, I'm pretty sure. That they have a lot of parties. There's, of course, AfD, Alternative für Deutschland, which is their, like, very, very extreme far-right party that has been raising red flags for a lot of people recently. I think it was CDU that has the top spot right now. I think Die Linke was in third, maybe. But, I don't know, it's just very interesting. And also the amount of parties they have, because they also have, like, the Green Party, there's something else. I feel like there was something that's orange that I'm forgetting about. There's, a good amount of parties in Germany because they're an actual democracy, really, and pretty much everyone has a voice because the way their thing is set up, it's not like winner takes all. It's every party that gets votes will have some sort of representation, where we just have really only our two of our Democrat and our Republican Party. And I'm pretty sure there's some sort of, like, principle behind that in, like, actual political policy. Or not policy, like, theory. That in a system like the US, there will just inevitably be two big parties because that's really the only way you can get a majority like that is we have one that's generally on one side and another that's generally on another side. Because if you have a Green Party or a Libertarian Party here, people don't vote for those because they know not that many people are voting for those. Even if they do believe in them, they know that it's essentially throwing away a vote. So I get it, but at the same time, it's kind of sad. And what I was thinking was, if I were to, like, wake up tomorrow in the presidency and have my own administration, I guess, and, like, if I was writing out 8 billion executive orders right now, I have a list of things that are kind of top priorities to me, which I think most other people probably don't have these priorities, which is why I'm saying it would have to be a people's party, because it would have to be something completely different. I don't think this really falls under Democrat or Republican. I mean, I think it probably falls a little closer to Democrat, but it's not something most Democrats are really thinking about, a lot of these. So, anyways, here we go. I think one of my priorities for mine would be the freedom of assembly, because I was thinking about it, like, we've had protests here in Alabama for SB 129, which is the, like, basically it made DEI illegal here, which is why we don't have a black student union room there used to be a room in the student center here at the University of Alabama for the Black Student Union, but we just don't have it anymore because of this bill. And same with anything related to any other diversity, equity, or inclusion. There was, I think it was called Safe Zone, was like the queer space on campus, gone. So I mean, these places are being repurposed, but the fact that you can't have a room that's explicitly for Black people or for queer people on campus says a lot. And people did protest, but anytime there's a protest here, it feels very out of the way. Like, I feel like it's really hard to actually use that freedom to assemble. But places like France, all the time, they just go in the streets and protest. If there's something wrong, they're going to go out there and march about it. And I wish that we lived in a place where that was possible, because it just doesn't feel possible anymore here. So that's kind of my biggest thing, is freedom of assembly, and how are we free to assemble if we all live so far away from each other, especially in suburbs, like I talked about kind of last episode. The next thing I would say is relax zoning. So zoning laws, this goes back into urban planning. I'll get all the urban planning ones out of the way first. Basically, there's this thing called Euclidean zoning based off of the city of Euclid, Ohio. I think it's right outside of Cleveland, where all of the zones are their own separate blocks, and they're very specific separate blocks. So you used to have, like a main street with a bunch of shops, but then there's apartments above those shops, and sometimes there's single family homes, sometimes there's duplexes, fourplexes, smaller apartments, those types of things. But America today, as we see it, it's mostly just single family houses, because that's the most that a company can make money off of, really. And it would have the highest value. And there was a time where it would make sense to do that, but not everyone can afford a single family home like that, especially not a large one with a front yard or backyard. So I think being able to relax zoning laws and allow for higher density, which, by the way, when more people live in one place, that means more tax revenues being generated. Therefore, the city can actually afford it. Some cities, like a lot of places in Florida, are just so spread out that all the water pipes underneath and all of the roads that they have to maintain and the highways that they have to build and maintain, those cost a lot of money. And when there's only 4 people living in one of those houses, and keep in mind 2 of them are usually kids, who's going to pay for it? And if you're not going to have property taxes, where do you think the money to pay for all these services is going to come from? So that's why, to me, it's a priority to start building our communities back in a stronger way. I tagged them in the last video, but strong towns and Not Just Bikes as well are 2 great places on YouTube if you want to learn about these concepts at all. Yeah, I don't like American suburbia whatsoever, and I'm very much a city person, but I have had to live in American suburbia my whole life, so, it's weird. And then another policy I would have is a sidewalk on every street. I think most towns would be able to afford to put sidewalks on almost every street, or at least every main street that is often used. Because my thing is, here, you can't walk anywhere because the sidewalks just stop, or there's no sidewalks within neighborhoods. And I'm like, did you expect people to not go to their friend's house, or kids to go play? You have these big yards. Are kids meant to be barricaded inside of those yards? I don't know. I think having a sidewalk on every street would alleviate some of that. Yeah. Oh, this is getting dangerously close to being over. I might push it to 20 minutes. We'll see with this episode. Yeah, freedom of assembly. The next thing I think is police reform. Because, police started out in this country as slave patrol. So why do we want to continue that in the present day? Also, what do you mean you're a Black police officer? Just, think about it for 3 seconds. We have seen police brutality everywhere in this country. I don't care where it is. If there's a Black person and a cop, there can be and normally is a problem. I think it's interesting, like, as a kid, I grew up to be, like, don't put your hands in your pockets when you're at the store, and, just make sure you say yes, sir, yes, ma'am to any police officer you interact with, just because, like, it could be a matter of danger for me. And other black people. I know other people have gotten the same talk as well. And I think that shouldn't be how it is. I know some people have the kind of, oh, well, there's good and bad people. But, like, when you're giving someone that level of authority, when they clearly don't have to go through that much training, you're basically giving someone who has little to no training and no experience with the law a gun. You're giving them a dangerous weapon to just go after whoever. They're not educated on mental health at all, and that's why I think... So when I say police reform, my idea is that we just break it up, and same with like firefighters, break it up into things that are more specific. I think it's in Germany, they have like a kind of petty police, so they'll have people who do parking tickets. That's one like thing that they would do. Anything related to like civil disturbances, like if someone's just yelling outside, you would call them to go have them do something, not a police officer with a gun and a taser. So there's a difference there. And same with, why do we have firefighters be the one to get cats out of trees? Like, yes, they have ladders, but they could be fighting a fire with that giant fire truck. You know what I mean? So I think having some sort of petty police in the U.S. would do us a lot of good. And also take away from the people who would otherwise be dangerously armed, who don't need to be dangerously armed. Next, legalize weed, because why is it illegal? It's literally just racism. You look at the history of that, it's just racism, like, point blank. I believe it's indigenous to South America, if I'm not mistaken, and that kind of got conflated with people being from Mexico, or just Latino in general, and therefore it's bad. And same with black people, got conflated with, just the race of black people in general, and therefore it's bad, and therefore we need to get rid of it, and it's all of a sudden something that can get you thrown in jail, which makes no sense. So yeah, it is and can be used as medicine. Obviously it's similar to like alcohol or like tobacco, like cigarettes, where it's like there is some good effects, but it can also be abused. And it's just it's not something to take lightly, but it's definitely not something that should be sending anyone to jail. And especially, it's just like a natural plant that grows. Like, I mean, tobacco is too, and that has addictive properties. But weed doesn't have chemically addicting properties like that, at least not that I'm aware of. So I think people who are of age and who can use it in moderation should be allowed to. Just the same way as alcohol, like, just be of age and use it the right amount. But people who do struggle with like chronic use should be able to access the mental health resources for that. And that's another thing, just fund mental health resources. Oh my God, everyone is depressed and like anxious nowadays, which I hate that coming out of my mouth, because like I sound like everyone, but like it's true. We're just in such a place in society right now where it's just not great for anyone. So I think that's something that should be kind of paid more attention to and put more in place. And then lastly, I am running out of time. Last thing I want to touch on is sex ed in schools. I don't understand why we wait so late to teach sex ed and why it's so incomplete. My sex ed at my high school, and I went to a very good high school. Like, it was a public high school, but it was one of the best in my state. So we got a lot of funding, and it's in a pretty rich area. So I don't understand why they just like refuse to see. They did not teach gay anything at all. I mean, they taught the basics pretty much, which, sure. It wasn't abstinence only, but like she very heavily stressed abstinence in, what was that, ninth grade. And then the middle school ones felt like we didn't really learn anything because it was about puberty. So they were just like, you're gonna get hairy, and it's like, okay, that didn't. Oh, sorry. I keep swearing. Oh my god, sorry. Yeah, I think kids should be learning sex ed. I'm sorry, it's their own body, and telling them, oh, just don't think about it or don't do it at all. That's not gonna happen. The best way to avoid pregnancy is to tell them how you get pregnant in the first place. Because if they do something on accident because you just said, oh, don't touch anybody ever, like, your body is telling you that you should at that point when you reach puberty, because that is like the most fertile, well, probably not the most fertile, but like a very fertile time in your life when your body is ready to be able to do something like that. Even though it's not something that would fit in our society today, that's when your body is like, oh, well, we've made it to this point, we might as well carry on our, like, genes or whatever. So, yeah, I think we should teach kids about their bodies in an age-appropriate manner, but, like, use the actual medical terms for things, and don't shy away from it. Because that is one thing. If you call I'm not gonna say it on here because I don't know how this website's gonna be about that, but certain body parts, if you say, oh, you're wee or you're whatever, like, if you use one of those words, it often makes kids a lot more uncomfortable with talking about it, which I thought was interesting, because if they know what it's called and they know that, like, it's an actual part of them that has function, like, I don't know, their arms or their ears, a kid will complain like, oh, my ear hurts, but if something's going on in, like, their body like that, they're not going to tell you because it already has this weird word that they don't really know if they're allowed to say it or not, and it's taboo. If you just make it normal, then so many problems can be avoided. If we stop hiding from it, you can avoid so much. But yeah, that's what I would do if I magically woke up and became president next year. I'm going to run through it one more time, protect freedom of assembly, relax zoning laws, put a sidewalk on every street, police reforms, legalize weed, and have sex ed in all schools. So, I'm obviously not running for any political office. I do not have enough knowledge in politics or history or anything for that. But if someone is, and you agree with any of the things I said, I might be voting for you. We'll see. This has been my political rant for today. I hope you enjoyed. If you didn't, that sucks. Oh well. And if you did, great. Thanks for watching all the way through. Leave a comment, leave a like, whatever. Thank you. This is Buried Rat. I'll see y'all in another video then. Bye-bye.